Amandla. Amandla. Viva ANC, viva. Viva ANC, viva. Viva COSATU, viva. Viva SACP, viva. Viva all the Sankos, viva. Malibongwe. Roar, young lions, roar. Long live the spirit of Oliver Reginald Tambo, long live. Long live the spirit of Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, long live. Long live the spirit of Albertina Sisulu, long live. Long live the spirit of Mamuwini Mandela, long live. Mandla. Dumela. Dimasiari. Abshin. Molwin. Nawe molo. Program Director, our Treasurer General, Comrade Paul Mashatile, the Secretary General of the African National Congress, members of the African National Congress National Executive Committee who are here, the leadership of the ANC in our province here, led by Comrade David Makura, the leadership of our region here, and indeed other regions that are also here of the African National Congress, the leaders of the SACP, COSATU, and SANCO, representatives of various organizations that are here, particularly religious organizations, representatives of civil society and community formations, comrades and friends, but also the delegates to the Morogoro conference who are also here amongst us. This year, comrades, we commemorate the 50th anniversary of the ANC's consultative conference that was held in Morogoro in Tanzania in 1969. An event that will forever stand out as the turning point in our struggle for freedom. That is how important that conference was, as we will hear. We have chosen to mark this occasion on the day that we celebrate the birth of one of the most outstanding and remarkable leaders of our people, Isithwalandwe Siaparankwe, Oliver Reginald Tambo. We do so to recognize the leading and exceptional role that President O.R. Tambo played at the Morogoro conference and the contribution that he made to ensure that it was a successful conference. But this morning we had this wonderful occasion of remembering Comrade Oliver Tambo, an occasion that was held in Ekurhuleni, and we would like to thank the leadership of the ANC in Ekurhuleni and indeed the province, Comrade Masina. We want to thank you for having organized such a wonderful occasion where we remembered Comrade O.R. on his birthday. And you also made it quite an international occasion because we had in our presence at that occasion, a number of representatives from our sister organizations in the region, former liberation movements, the MPLA from Angola. We also had our representatives from ZANU-PF. But we also had Congresswoman Maxine Walters from the United States, who also attended. So we thank you for having made the occasion an international one. We are recognizing the role that Comrade O.R. played to recognize and applaud his unmatched contribution to the unity, the strength, and the integrity of the African National Congress during its darkest and most trying times. We recall these pivotal events in our past so that we may better understand the challenges as well as the opportunities of the present, and so that we are able to work together to achieve a better future. Reflecting on a historical event like the Morogoro Conference enables us to give meaning as well as context to our current experience. But allow me to digress just for a while and go on a little bit of a personal, and may I say also a political nostalgic journey. Earlier this year, we undertook a state visit to Tanzania. Ahead of that state visit, we had asked President Magufuli, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, to allow us to go to Morogoro. And when he heard that, he said, of course, we would like you to go to the shrine of the African National Congress. Our state visit preceded the meeting of the heads of state in our region, SADC, who were going to consider a whole number of things that are happening in our region. So we saw an opportunity to go on a state visit. Former Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke also went along because we had appointed him to become the facilitator for Lesotho, and he was going to have to give a report to the SADC summit. And when he heard that we were going to Morogoro, he asked if he could accompany us. And he said, as he recalled, the PAC, whilst it was stationed in Tanzania as well, did not have an opportunity to be in Morogoro. So he wanted to see this place because he had a sense that it was not only a shrine for the African National Congress, but it was an oasis for the ANC, where ANC members and leaders would go and drink from this oasis. And so he came along. And it was my first time to go to Morogoro. There are quite a number of comrades, obviously, who have been to Morogoro on a number of occasions. So it was quite an eye-opener to many of us who were in the delegation as we went to Morogoro. In a sense, it was like a spiritual journey. A spiritual journey, particularly on the year that we are celebrating or commemorating and remembering the role that Morogoro played in the history of our movement. And it almost felt like it was the Holy Grail, a political Holy Grail that we had to go to. We took time to walk around and see the buildings. We also took time to look at a school, a local school that is there, that has all the names of our leaders, various buildings in the school are named after our leaders, Abo Mama, Bettina Sisulu, Walter Sisulu, their names there, and Abo Lillian Goyi, they all have their names there. And it felt like we were at home. And in a way, what President Magufuli had said, that Morogoro was like the shrine for the ANC, rang true. The history of our movement, comrades, allows us to interrogate the forces impacting upon the collective lived reality, empowering us to be effective agents in molding the events of tomorrow. It gives us a tool to critically examine the tapestries woven by the threads of time. Today, as we reflect on OR's life, we desire to follow in his footsteps. It was at Morogoro that the strength of Comrade OR's character and the quality of his leadership were most severely tested. To those who may have doubted Morogoro, Morogoro confirmed that. More than anything else, that Oliver Tambo was an outstanding leader indeed. He understood that nothing of value could be achieved unless we were united in all the things that we did as a movement. Even during the episodes of great danger and great difficulty, when it seemed like things were falling apart, when it seemed like this movement that he had been asked in 1960 to go and establish an outside mission for, when it seemed like it was falling apart and that the center could not hold, President OR worked tirelessly to ensure that the movement and the members of the African National Congress remained united and focused. He did so without suppressing divergent views in our movement. He remained committed to the democratic values of our movement, of allowing all views to be expressed, whether he agreed with them or not. He created space for people to express their views, engage with each other, and also persuade others, and in so doing, arrive at common positions that all could embrace and defend. As a leader, he did not have any dictatorial tendencies in his exercise of leadership. He was a true Democrat. But Oliver Tambo was also a builder. He not only built our liberation movement and preserved it, but also built alliances and forged partnerships. Of course, in all this, he worked with other comrades, but there is just no doubt in the minds of any who worked with him that he was the master builder. For 3 decades, he traveled the globe, meeting heads of state, union leaders, activists, business people, cultural workers, celebrities, community leaders, revolutionaries, and you name them, he kept meeting them all. And he did this to mobilize the whole world against a racist and murderous state of apartheid. He ignited in all those he met and engaged with a shared determination that they should fight for the rights of freedom for all people. He rallied the whole world behind a shared vision of a different society and a different world. Oliver Tambo was a person of great humility and selflessness. Someone writing in a book edited by Comrade Paulo Jordan writes as follows about OR. When we think of OR, what comes to mind is the most gentle soul, with the most tiger-like spirit. The kindest heart, with the fiercest determination, the most compassionate nature, with the strongest moral compass, the warmest, the sweetest personality, with an unflinching dedication to honesty, the most loving, peaceful temperament, with a sharper sense of conscience, the most beautiful smile, the resolve to accept only absolute integrity, the most noble, patient, calm presence, with the most tenacious fervor for bold, uncompromising action, and the most brilliant intellect, with the most earnest, sincere appreciation for the simplest contribution. What a giant OR was, a steadfast force with such vitality, creativity, courage, clarity, honesty, and consistency. How blessed we were to know and work with such a great leader, close quotes. That's what they say about OR. As he made clear at Morogoro, he would do whatever was asked of him to advance the struggle of the South African people and to restore the movement, even if that meant standing down as acting president of the African National Congress. He put the needs of the people above his own, to the detriment of his career, his family, and ultimately his own health. The Morogoro Conference took place at a time of great distress within the liberation movement. Following the Sharpeville massacre of 1960 and the subsequent banning of the ANC, PAC, and other organizations, South Africa entered a period of brutal repression. The leaders of the movement were arrested, driven into exile, and forced underground. But with some great wisdom, as all these things unfolded, the leaders of our organization had taken a prior decision, knowing that the ANC was going to be banned and knowing that the apartheid brutal rulers would unleash the most devastating actions against the ANC and its leaders, including its members, had decided to send Comrade OR out of the country to go and set up a mission, an external mission, and also to go and spread the word about what was happening in South Africa. The ANC struggled to adapt to these fundamentally changed conditions, where established norms and forms of organizing were disrupted, activists were dispersed across the continent and the world, and resources were scarce. The adoption of the armed struggle and the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe in 1961 established a new avenue of resistance and gave great hope to the oppressed masses of South Africa. But the conditions under which armed struggle was adopted meant that the relationship between the political struggle and the military action was not well defined. The Wanki and Sipolilo campaigns, and this afternoon at Vilakazi Street we heard from comrades who participated in both of these campaigns. These campaigns, which saw the first direct confrontation between MK guerrillas and the racist forces of the then Rhodesia demonstrated the great challenges of infiltrating fighters back into South Africa. There were also heightened dissatisfaction amongst ANC-MK combatants at the conditions in the camps and grievances about the perceived attitudes of some within the ANC leadership. The depth of dissent within the ranks was evident in a document produced by Comrade Chris Hani and 6 other comrades of Umkhonto weSizwe that became known as the Hani memorandum. It read in some of its parts as follows: the ANC in exile is in deep crisis, as a result of which a rot has set in. From informal discussions with the revolutionary members of MK, we have inferred that they have lost all confidence in the ANC leadership abroad. This they say openly and in fact show it. Such a situation is very serious, and in fact a revolutionary movement has to sit down and analyze such a prevailing state of affairs. Close quotes. That is what Comrade Chris Hani and others had written. While there were some within the movement who wanted to take harsh action against Comrade Chris Hani and those who held the same views, leaders such as Comrade O.R. Tambo recognized the need for the movement to confront these challenges head-on. Comrade O.R. was particularly disturbed by the memorandum because it was a reflection of the generally low morale that was clearly developing in the camps and in the ANC in exile. The movement clearly needed a shake-up. So much evidence of disappointment, of anger and division had been expressed by a number of members of the ANC. In the collective leadership were individuals who had behaved in ways that were not in keeping with the ethos of the ANC. Comrade O.R. asked himself many questions, such as how was one meant to restructure the movement and constructively assess its progress and challenges. He went on to hold a number of discussions with several comrades about the situation the movement found itself in. His conversations even went beyond the paid-up membership of the ANC to include discussions with Congress alliance partners. And then he decided, or before that, he used his customary lateral approach to view this setback as a window of opportunity. As he looked at all these things and heard the conversations that comrades were having, rather than see challenges and problems and obstacles, Comrade O.R. saw a great opportunity that was unfolding. Following intelligent listening and groundwork, he felt that it was necessary to call for a consultative conference to address the problems that had been raised within the movement. He felt that the purpose of the conference would be to redefine or re-examine the role of the movement in relation to the internal structures and its strategy and tactics in dealing with the way forward. The outcome was to become a process of reorganizing and rebuilding the ANC. This was seen as a bold move, but he was convinced that this was the direction the movement needed to take. As he was the type of leader he was, who consulted other leaders on a continuous basis, he sent word via his secret route to Robben Island and said that a consultative conference which would have decision-making powers was not only vital, but that it was overdue. And you can imagine when that word got to Robben Island, it would have been discussed by those leaders on Robben Island who would have included no other than Comrade Madiba, Comrade Walter, Mbeki, and the others. In due course, he received a reply agreeing to the conference. Preparations were then made for a national consultative conference to be held in the town of Morogoro in Tanzania in 1969. In the words of a directive by the NEC, the conference was to bring together militants who constitute the entire spectrum of the progressive and revolutionary forces within our movement for a down-to-earth appraisal of every aspect of our liberation struggle as led by the African National Congress. The conference was therefore the culmination of several months of discussion, criticism, and consultation amongst ANC leaders and members who were stationed across the world. The preparations included the submission of numerous documents outlining the challenges in the movement and suggested remedies. A memorandum prepared by Comrade Ben Turok said, "No one in the movement can be content with the present situation. All must be aware of a deep-going malaise such as we have never known before." Close quotes. This was one of the great achievements of the Morogoro Conference, to enable the ANC to critically dissect its problems and to agree through vibrant and sometimes heated debate on a common approach to address these. Importantly, in addressing internal difficulties, the Morogoro Conference remained firmly focused on the tasks of the liberation movement. In one of its directives, the NEC described the significance of the conference in these terms: "We are faced with a great challenge to overthrow the most powerful state in Africa and replace it with a democratic people's state. To do this requires the total mobilization of millions of our people. Radical changes are required in our machinery, in our style of work, to enable us to achieve a further spurt towards the great goal of our movement." In several ways, this is what the Morogoro Conference achieved. Morogoro produced the first ANC strategy and tactics document, which outlined the objectives, the key tasks and methods of struggle of our movement. It enabled free discussion and debate at the deepest level. Nothing was left unsaid. Names were named, events were cited, NEC members were named in whatever things that were happening at the time. But what it did do, it provided clear direction to all within the movement on their respective responsibilities and on the theoretical basis that informed the actions and the activities of the African National Congress. It also defined the role of the armed struggle as an essential part of the political program of the movement and its relationship to the development of a mass movement inside the country. The election of a new NEC and the establishment of a revolutionary council was among the decisions that contributed to greater organizational coherence, and prepared the ANC to better operate under changed circumstances. After a long and difficult discussion, stretching back several years, Morogoro decided to open membership of the African National Congress. Membership, as you might recall, was just closed to Africans. Morogoro decided to open it wide open, and the ANC then became truly non-racial. This was a greatly significant moment where the long-standing principle of non-racialism was given expression in who could consider themselves full and equal members of the struggle for liberation. This afternoon we had at lunch Comrade Sitwalande Sophie de Bruyn, who was also at Morogoro. And she said she attended Morogoro, and then she asked one of the leaders whether she would also be allowed to vote. And she was told that no, you will not be allowed to vote because you are non-African. She says if there was anything that hurt her deeply, that was precisely that message that she got. Because she and her husband had laid down their lives. They were prepared to lay down their lives for the struggle for freedom. But Morogoro's outcome corrected all that. And the African National Congress was then open also to Comrade Sophie de Bruyn and all others to become members of this glorious movement. Morogoro had an immense impact not only on the unity and coherence of the ANC, but also on the course of the struggle for the next 2 decades. The legacy of Morogoro stretches right into the present. It remains a vivid reminder of the ability of the ANC to renew itself and to inject new impetus into the struggle. It established within the democratic movement a tradition of critical self-assessment and, importantly, self-correction as well. It helped to entrench practices of internal democracy, frank debate, and leadership accountability that remain defining features of the African National Congress. In case, comrades, we may not have been aware how this deep culture that was set afoot at Morogoro, we can now see it playing itself out. It was a joy for me to be in KZN and to listen to our comrades in KZN saying, we have now embarked on a process of getting the leaders, people that we deploy in various key positions, to come and to be answerable and to be accountable to the African National Congress. And that people are no longer accountable to themselves, but that they are accountable to the ANC. And they were telling us how they brought together people who were deployed in municipal positions and how they were asking them to be accountable, to answer for themselves against the objectives that the movement had set out. And where they were found to not have achieved the objectives, they were removed, because that is what accountability should be all about. Through the strategy and tactics document, Morogoro provided an instrument for promoting theoretical clarity and political coherence in the prosecution of our liberation struggle. The revision of the strategy and tactics document over the years has enabled the movement to understand changing conditions, but more importantly, to adjust its priorities and program to meet the demands of the new environment. Reflecting on the significance of Morogoro, several years later, President O.R. Tambo said, "Morogoro became a landmark and a turning point in our struggle," close quotes. After a period of organizational malaise, dissent, and disunity, the ANC emerged from Morogoro into a new era of unity, into an era of revitalization and intensified struggle. Now, comrades, 50 years later, the ANC finds itself at another such moment. The 54th National Conference, which was held in December 2017, recognized that the movement was in decline. The diagnostic organizational report presented by the then Secretary General described a growing deficit of trust between the people and the movement, which was evident in declining electoral support. The movement was also no longer united. Factionalism, patronage had become entrenched in the organization as leaders contested fiercely, not only for positions, but for the access to resources that these positions provided them. This contestation had distorted almost every aspect of the life of our glorious movement, from the recruitment of members to the functioning of branches to the organization of conferences. No longer did it appear to our people that cadres of the movement were guided by the values of honesty, humility, hard work, commitment, sacrifice, and selflessness. The movement was weak, divided, and floundering. Yet the most devastating effect of this malaise was its impact on the African National Congress to be an effective instrument of fundamental economic and social change. Many branches were no longer engaged with the issues that affected the people of our country. Effective governance was sacrificed as ANC public representatives fought almost continuously over the spoils of office. Under such conditions, corruption became widespread, state capture emerged, and critical institutions of our democracy were undermined and compromised. As had been the case nearly 5 decades earlier at Morogoro, it was the delegates of the 54th Conference, the representatives of the branches of the ANC, who determined that the ANC was in deep crisis. It was they who determined that radical steps were required to restore the movement and return it to the path of revolutionary change. It was they who declared that organizational renewal, therefore, is an absolute and urgent priority, and we may go as far as to say it is essential for the survival of our great movement. And true to the mandate of the 54th Conference, we have been engaged in a concerted effort to unify the organization, to restore its moral fiber and its moral compass, and to rebuild its structures. The delegates to the conference determined that the national leadership of the movement should not be dominated by one slate or another, but it should reflect the diversity of the organization itself. They determined that comrades who had fiercely contested each other and held different perspectives before the conference should now sit in the same NEC. They should also sit at the same table to lead the organization in a new era. The leadership has responded to this clear instruction, working to unite and to rebuild the organization, fighting a difficult but ultimately successful election campaign, and beginning to rebuild the public institutions that had been eroded through state capture. And in many ways, comrades, it was the membership of our movement who imposed renewal and unity. Left to our wiles, it is possible that we would never have embarked on this process of renewing and uniting our movement. And since December 2017, we have been at it. At times it has been difficult. We have taken 5 steps forward and sometimes 7 steps backwards. But we have been forging ahead all the time. There is one area of our country which I always cite for applause and recognition, which is KZN. In KZN, we had enormous challenges post the Nasrec conference, but we applaud the comrades in KZN for having forged unity in reality, and principled unity for that matter. They decided that working in different camps, in different factions, would never serve the people of our country any better. And they decided consciously that they are going to unite the province, they are going to work together, where comrades who did not even like each other started working together. And may I add that you yourselves here in Gauteng followed suit. You decided that divided we shall all fall, but united we will be able to achieve unbelievable things. So Morogoro helped to inspire our movement for the last 50 years. And I would say that Nasrec is helping to inspire us with a message of unity and with a message of renewal, to unite our organization and to get comrades who would never have seen themselves ever working together, sitting around a table, working together, being compelled by none other but the African National Congress to work together. And it is for this reason that factionalism, divisions amongst us, must come to an end, and must come to an end now. It is for this reason that even the dislike for one another, this is what the comrades in KZN found. They said, you know, we realized that we disliked each other, but we all loved the ANC, and the ANC made us love each other in the end. So, comrades, unity that was forged in Morogoro is the type of unity that should continue to inspire us to take our movement forward. Yesterday I was in the Free State and I was saying to our comrades that when we are divided as the African National Congress, South Africa is also divided. When the ANC is united, South Africa forges unity and it moves ahead as one. When the ANC has leaders who fight amongst themselves, leaders who attack one another, it registers in the minds, in the conscience of ordinary South Africans. And South Africans, I must tell you, abhor and they hate disunity. South Africans want to see a united African National Congress. Finish and clear. And yesterday I said, and I'll repeat it here, that comrades, unity is an important project that our forebears and history has dictated that we should embark on. And I said yesterday, those who want to divide the African National Congress, the door and the windows are open. You can go. I say this advisedly as the president of the ANC because I have concluded, comrades, that there is no other option than to be united. If we fight amongst ourselves and don't do what Morogoro comrades did, they sat down and debated issues and called a spade a spade. They called names and names and names. They went to the heart of the problem and spoke truth to each other, including truth to power. That is what they did, and they emerged united. We are therefore called upon by history to do exactly the same. And that is why I say, if you are not for unity, then you are not for the ANC. You are against the African National Congress. And then, if that is what you want to do, re kopa hore o pake dibuka tsa hao, o re tswele ka ntlo, o tswe o tsamaye. Comrades, the project of uniting the African National Congress emanates from the founding fathers and the mothers of this movement. When they founded the African National Congress in 1912, they wanted a united ANC. And along the way, as we were losing our way, yes, it was the membership who said, we want a united ANC. And similarly, in 2017, our membership said, we want a united ANC. There is a growing sense in some quarters that the process of unity has stalled and that it is being taken, we are being taken back. I would like to believe that this is a project which will and must succeed. It is a project that we need to keep at, to make sure that indeed it does reach the success that we would like to see. And while there is much support and enthusiasm for renewal and rebuilding, ANC members and supporters and broader society have not been sufficiently involved in giving effect to the important resolutions of the 54th conference. Therefore, as we gather here to mark the 50th anniversary of Morogoro, as we pay tribute to the immense contribution of Isitwalandwe O.R. Tambo, let us solemnly affirm that we will indeed deepen the renewal of our movement, and we will also deepen the renewal of our society. Let us affirm here that we will not relent, that we will not falter, that we will not, under any circumstance, retreat. We, as the African National Congress, we are known as a cohort of people who do not retreat. We do not run away from problems. We do not take our jackets and run away. We stay in and solve the problems. Are tshwane ba bang ba baleang. And let us remember at all material times that we undertake these tasks not merely for the sake of our movement, but to advance the interests of the people of our country. We undertake these tasks for no other reason than that the ANC becomes the most powerful and the most effective instrument for the achievement of a better life for all South Africans. We must attend to our internal problems without being inward-looking. And we must build unity within our ranks so that we can work to unify society. The ANC has been charged with the responsibility not only of leading society, but of unifying society. That is the historic responsibility that we were given right from get-go in 1912. And over these 107 years, we have seen no other organization that is best suited, that is best equipped to do exactly the task that the ANC was given to unite South Africa. That mandate was renewed in 2017 at our 54th conference. The unity that we seek is ideological, it is principled, it is political and organizational. We've been united around a common objective and through debate have sought consensus on our strategy and tactics. With the Freedom Charter as our lodestar, the Congress movement has consistently worked to build a South Africa that belongs to all of us who live in it, black and white. Non-racialism has never been a tactic. Like reconciliation, it has never been about placating the erstwhile oppressor or seeking electoral advantage. The 1969 Strategy and Tactics document adopted at Morogoro said that the purpose of our struggle is the complete political and economic emancipation of all our people and the constitution of a society which accords with the basic provisions of our program as set out in the Freedom Charter. That remains our purpose to this day, and it is towards the achievement of this purpose that we must direct all our energies and efforts. It is towards the achievement of this purpose, comrades, the complete emancipation of all our people, that we seek to renew and revitalize our movement, because it is only this movement that is the real engine to bring about change in our country. This requires, in the first instance, that we strengthen the exercise of people's power. The democratic breakthrough that we achieved in 1994 established government based on the will of the people. It gave people the right to vote, to be consulted on policy and legislation, and to participate in various areas of governance, from schools to the local development planning process. Yet there is much more we need to do to ensure that South Africans have a meaningful say in all matters that affect their lives. We need to close the gap between citizens and the people elected to represent them. We need to make the process of governing much more transparent and the institutions of government much more accessible. Certainly we need better laws and regulations, but the exercise of people's power requires organization, conscientization, and mobilization of citizens to take more direct control of their destiny. It also requires a fundamental transformation of the structure of our economy. It was the 1969 Strategy and Tactics document that said, "Our drive towards national emancipation is in a very real way bound up with economic emancipation. We have suffered more than just national humiliation," the Tactics document said. "Our people are deprived of their due in the country's wealth, their skills have been suppressed, and poverty and starvation has been their life experience. The correction of these centuries-old economic injustices lies at the very core of our national aspirations. By acknowledging the humiliation of our people, the 1969 Strategy and Tactics document makes the point which I have always felt very strongly about, that the oppression of black South Africans was as much psychological as it was material. Consistent with this analysis from 50 years ago and informed by the lived experience of our people, we have placed the task of radical economic transformation at the center of our national program. As a nation, we have set ourselves the task of ending poverty and significantly reducing inequality by 2030. We are directing all our efforts towards the creation of work and economic opportunities for the 9 million South Africans who are unemployed. Unemployment is the biggest challenge that our country faces, and we are therefore directing all our efforts. Every effort that we seek to make is directed at seeing how best we can increase the level of employment amongst our people. We have undertaken an accelerated program of land redistribution so that the country's land may be shared among all those who work it and all those who need it. And in this regard, resolutions taken by our conference will be implemented. The land shall be returned to the people of our country. We are working to provide decent, affordable housing in areas that are close to economic opportunities and all the amenities that people need to live comfortably and also live productive lives. The achievement of economic freedom is dependent also on the universal provision of quality education to all South Africans. It is dependent on a skills revolution in which those who have been deliberately denied decent education over several generations have opportunities to acquire the skills needed to thrive in a changing economy. This morning, I was subjected to heavy lobbying by the Premier of our province here and the Executive Mayor of Ekurhuleni, who were lobbying me and saying, "President, Ekurhuleni as a metro is the only metro in the whole country that does not have a university." And they said they now want a university in Ekurhuleni. We've heard them. Through affordable, accessible health care, through comprehensive social security, through better public transport, through basic free water and electricity, we are striving to improve the quality of life of the poorest within our society. Emancipation, comrades, also means that people should be free from fear. It is our revolutionary duty and task to take up the fight against crime and all forms of violence, including violence that is daily perpetrated by men against the women and the children of our country. And it is in this regard that we have to say we must end gender-based violence, and we've got to end it now. And it is in this regard that I call upon all the men in our country to respect the women of our country, to treat them with dignity and respect. It is similarly a revolutionary task to end corruption in the state, in business, and across society. Corruption is an instrument of counter-revolution because it redirects resources meant for the poor into the pockets of a few. It undermines the rule of law, but it also undermines the institutions of democracy, and it impedes the transformation of the economy and society. Comrades, the 54th conference charged us with a task to end corruption. And comrades, we need to work together to end corruption within our own movement, within our government, and as we often say, we must do it not only within our lifetime, but we must do it immediately. Corruption must be brought down. To drive transformation, we need a capable and ethical developmental state. We need public servants who are dedicated, who are hardworking, and have the skills and expertise needed to implement the change that our people want. We need institutions that are robust, that are durable, that are properly resourced, institutions that cannot be captured or diverted to serve other purposes. We recognize, as the delegates at the Morogoro conference did 50 years ago, that the freedom of the South African people cannot be achieved for as long as there are others in the world who are colonized, oppressed, or exploited. As O.R. Tambo said at Morogoro, it is impossible, if not fatal, to divorce the struggle of our people in South Africa from the struggles of other people in the world. We therefore have a responsibility to pursue the achievement of peace, stability, and inclusive prosperity on the African continent and across the world. The Morogoro Conference was made possible by the support and solidarity of the government and the people of Tanzania, just as our freedom was made possible by the tireless and selfless contributions of people from many countries across Africa and other corners of the world. It is therefore appropriate that solidarity should be a fundamental pillar of our foreign policy alongside the achievement of our own national interest. We recall the historic fraternal relations between the ANC and a number of other fraternal organizations that are still involved in struggle. Polisario Front, as it continues to struggle against injustice and colonialism. It is concerning that Western Sahara is still the only remaining colony in Africa, and the African National Congress will therefore forever remain committed to ensure that the people of Western Sahara do achieve their own independence. Yes, we will also remain committed to ensure that there is justice for the people of Palestine. And we will also remain committed to make sure that the illegal economic embargo and blockade against the Republic of Cuba is also removed. Now we add Zimbabwe. We were involved in a campaign which the SG led at Beitbridge to have the sanctions that have been imposed on Zimbabwe to be lifted, and we demand that they should be lifted. Comrades, to achieve radical economic transformation of our society, we need to deepen and intensify the organizational renewal of our movement. We must therefore use the opportunity of this important anniversary to clearly outline the tasks that we must now undertake as a movement. We must firmly entrench the exercise of democracy and accountability throughout our movement. It must be a priority that we empower branches of our movement to freely choose their leaders and to contribute meaningfully to decision-making in the organization. Using the eye of the needle as our reference, we must free branch members and conference delegates from the influence of money and other incentives. Everyone must be able to participate in the organizational processes without the threat of coercion or violence, without the threat or the promise of patronage. In part, this can be achieved through improved management and the effective use of technology, as the new membership system will demonstrate. It is also calls for more effective and more systematic cadre development programs, such as those managed by the O.R. Tambo School of Leadership. But it also requires a change in attitude, a return to the values that once defined what the ANC is all about. It requires that each one of us accepts personal responsibility for our actions. However, it also requires that we act differently as an organization. We should no longer be prepared, comrades, to defend the indefensible. We should no longer be prepared to defend what cannot be defended. For far too long, we have been prepared to close ranks and protect comrades who have done wrong things. This now has to come to an end, comrades, in the process of renewal. We should no longer look away when we know that wrong things are being done in our movement. Accountability and consequence management must become a reality in the structures of government and our organization as well. Perhaps the most vital part of our renewal is to ensure that the ANC is rooted in society and in our communities. This is an important aspect of the renewal process. We need to remember that the ANC does not live in an ivory tower. The ANC does not live on an island. The ANC resides in society, in our communities. When we do wrong things, the communities see that we are doing wrong things, and they turn their backs on us. When we do wrong things, either in government or even in our own organization, our people are the first people to see that the ANC is now losing its way and it is getting out of line. It is the ANC that must always protect and whose interests, it is the ANC that we must always protect and whose interests we must always advance rather than the narrow interests of individuals, be they leaders or members. We've often been caught out protecting the interests of individuals, be they leaders or members. The time has now arrived, comrades, where we must protect the interests of the African National Congress and no other. And there are a number of things that we need to do to make sure that we are connected with our people. For instance, an ANC branch must be seen to be leading in reality by being connected with all the things that happen in our communities. For instance, when a clinic runs out of essential medicines, it must be the cadres of the ANC who do not rest until there are medicines in that clinic. When trains run late, when social grants are not paid on time, when gangsters terrorize communities, when taps run dry, it must be the structures of the ANC who work with our communities to make sure that we address the problems. Where there are social problems, we are the ones who must take urgent steps to ensure that our people know that the ANC does not only lead, but the ANC is with them. Effective renewal requires, therefore, that we build the ANC as an effective instrument of social and economic change. It means that we need to draw into our ranks the most committed and the most principled within society. We must develop cadres, comrades, who have both political and technical skills, who can organize, who can theorize, but who can also act. We need cadres who demonstrate as much knowledge of the global economy as they understand the operations of a small spaza shop. We must be an organization that values knowledge, an organization that values expertise, that invests in the development of its cadres. It is through these actions, comrades, that we will restore the credibility of the African National Congress amongst our people. The renewal of our movement also means that we must reassert in practice our bias towards the working class and the poor. As our 2017 Strategy and Tactics document notes, the rise of a black middle strata is a positive development which accords with the broader objectives of social transformation. However, as this strata gains greater political and economic weight, and as more of the leadership of the movement enter this strata, there is a risk that the ANC's bias towards the poor and the working class may be diminished. We need to guard against that. Our renewal must therefore be an ideological renewal so that we may understand both the national as well as the class content of our struggle, and so that the policies and programs we adopt are informed by this reality. As we undertake this work, we must reinforce, comrades, the non-racial character of the African National Congress. That decision to open membership 50 years ago was a correct decision. It reinforced the unity of the oppressed people in our country and also acknowledged the role of white Democrats in the struggle for freedom and equality. Now, 50 years later, we must acknowledge that we still have much work to do to establish the ANC as a home for all South Africans. Voting patterns that we have seen over the past 25 years show that there's been a decline in ANC support in colored, Indian communities and no increase in the white communities. This is reflected too in the composition of most of our leadership structures as well as electoral lists. These are matters that we need to address. This should be a matter of great concern for our organization that has been the foremost champion of a truly non-racial South Africa. We need to better understand the reasons for this and take measures to ensure that our recruitment in our structures and in our programs, we promote greater inclusivity as well as diversity. The revitalization of our movement requires that we also strengthen our commitment to gender equality and women's emancipation. We have made huge strides in this regard, but there is much more to be done. We have embraced the principle of equal representation in all our structures, although we do not always achieve gender parity in practice. While we work to ensure that this principle is applied uniformly and consistently, our greater task is to ensure that women are able to join the movement, participate equally in all its activities, and advance without impediment to occupy positions of leadership in our movement. Even though, comrades, we may have the most progressive policies, we need to better understand how patriarchal attitudes and practices conspire to limit the opportunities for women in society and in the economy and even within our own movement. The success of our efforts to renew and to revitalize the ANC depends ultimately on our conduct as leaders and as cadres. We need to embrace the concept of revolutionary discipline as understood and practiced by O.R. Tambo. As we have said before, he did not understand discipline as primarily a matter of rules, regulations, and sanction. For him, discipline was the product of deliberate political decision by an individual to dictate their capabilities and to dedicate what they are able to do, their resources and energy, to the achievement of the aims of the movement. For him, discipline was a consequence of the decision of an individual to join the African National Congress. Discipline does not mean and does not earn praise. It does not bring personal reward. It is about working hard, placing the interests of the people above your own interests. It is about fighting factionalism. It is also about resisting corruption, safeguarding public resources. It is about integrity and honesty. It is about acting at all times to promote unity and to desist from any action or any utterance that may sow division. I want to repeat this one because quite often we fall foul of this one. Discipline, comrades, is about acting at all times to promote unity and to desist from any action or any utterance, be it an utterance in public, be it on Twitter, be it on Facebook, be it whatever, that may sow divisions within the ranks of the African National Congress. Renewal must be driven by all of us, and it is all of us who, through our actions, must be the renewal. We recall the memorable words that Comrade Madiba spoke at the funeral of O.R. Tambo when he said, "I say that Oliver Tambo has not died because the ideals for which he sacrificed his life can never die. I say that Oliver Tambo has not died because the ideals of freedom, human dignity, colorblind respect for every individual cannot perish. I say he has not died because there are many of us who became part of his soul and therefore willingly entered into a conspiracy with him for the victory of his cause. While the ANC lives, Oliver Tambo cannot die." Close quotes. And so, comrades, it falls on all of us, leaders, members, veterans, supporters, to do everything within our means, not only to ensure that the ANC lives, but that it thrives and that it grows and that it is united and that it endures as a powerful instrument for peace and for freedom. Now, in his closing address to the Morogoro conference, this is what O.R. had to say as he summed up the mood of sober determination. He said, "These are the orders to our people. The order that comes from the conference is that close ranks, unite, be vigilant, comrades, because the enemy is vigilant. Beware the wedge driver. Men," he didn't cite women here, he said men who creep from ear to ear, driving wedges amongst us, who go around creating splits and divisions. Beware the wedge driver. Watch his poisonous tongue. That is what O.R. Tambo said. And I want to end by giving a little bit of color to O.R. O.R. was quite an amazing leader. A leader who, as we say in our program, that all of us should walk in his footsteps. I, for one, would want to walk in O.R.'s footsteps every day. The type of leader that he was, I am told, and I never experienced this, and this closing of the conference was quite instructive because it tells a lot about O.R.'s character. I am told, and comrades who were in exile will testify to this, that O.R. was the type of leader who abhorred and did not like people who will creep to you from ear to ear, telling you stories about other comrades. He did not like that. And what I am told he used to do was the following. If you went to O.R. with a gossip and a story, true or false, dirty or beautiful, or whatever, he would say before, as he heard you outline your story, Comrade O.R. would immediately say, "Just hold on 1 minute there. Let us call that comrade so that he can come and hear what you are saying about him." And I am told that that stopped comrades growing to O.R. ear to ear, whispering and whispering, gossiping and gossiping, sowing divisions. That stopped them in their tracks. And that is the footsteps I want to walk in. But more importantly, all of us comrades, as we implement the resolution, what I would call the overriding resolution of the 54th conference, the overriding resolution of building unity and renewal, I would say, comrades, we must be irrevocably committed to unity, and we must be aware of wedge drivers, those who try to divide the African National Congress. Should we find them, if we find those who are dividing the African National Congress, please remind them of what I said today, that the door is open. They must leave. Thank you very much.